All right, guys, so over the last few years, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what my purpose is. And I've put in a lot of research, I've put in a lot of yards just to try and figure out this very important topic. And the reason why you're clicking on this video is because you, like many other people, are probably trying to figure out what your purpose is, because you want to do something on this planet that actually fulfills you. And so this is why I've spent so much time trying to figure this out for myself, because I realized that even though I was working high-paying jobs, or even though I started a business and I was making money, that I wasn't fulfilled doing the thing, even though I was getting paid for it. You see, we all think that money's going to solve a lot of problems. And although it does solve a lot of problems, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that you're going to be fulfilled. There's so many different ways for you to make money out there in the world. There are so many different career choices. There's so many different decisions and opportunities out there for you that will take you away from your path. And the thing is, if you are away from your path, you're going to be, at the end of the day, unfulfilled. You're going to be miserable and you're going to be frustrated because you might be doing something that just isn't deep within you. And so what I've discovered from just doing a lot of research is that your purpose is genuinely just deep within inside you. It's inherent within you. It's like a fingerprint. It's unique to you. And you figure this out by going and self-reflecting, okay? So I've realized that the best people to learn from in this area, there's three of them that I would recommend that you do a lot of research in. You watch their YouTube videos, you read their books. The first one is Carl Jung, okay? The second one is Dr. John DeMartini. And the third is Tony Robbins. These three people have allowed me to figure out exactly how you can find out what your purpose is. And the thing is, at the end of this video, you're probably going to expect that it's going to be very obvious to you. And it's not. You're still going to have to do a little bit of reflection, but you're going to be on the right path and you're going to have far more direction, because that's really ultimately what we need. Sometimes you might not be ready to fully accept what your purpose is. You just have to go in the direction of your purpose. And funnily enough, if you do the exercises that the three of these people, these specialists, talk about doing, and I'll explain a little bit more in this video, you're gonna realize that your whole life has been moving towards your purpose anyway, okay? Even if you've been in jobs that you've hated, or you've done things that just, you didn't like or whatever, these things have allowed you to set yourself up onto the right path. It's really funny the way life works, because eventually you are going to be able to hit that purpose. But the thing is, most people just don't, because they either don't self-reflect or they don't look for their purpose just generally. They're not really putting enough effort into doing it. And they just get stuck in, the usual scripted lifestyle, the usual 9-to-5 way of life. They get comfortable. Nothing against the 9-to-5 life, but if you're comfortable in a situation, it means that you're not really growing. And so I think that's a real big problem. You should be comfortable to a certain aspect, but you should always continue to be growing and looking for the next big thing, because you're here for a reason. You weren't here by accident, okay? You won the lottery just by being born. And in addition to that, your bloodline is here. Hundreds, if not thousands of people died just for you to be here, for your bloodline to survive. I know it's not nice to think about it like that, but that's how history is. Humans used to kill each other just to survive. The reason you're here today is because someone has killed in your name, okay? That's the way it is. And so if you're here on the planet today, if you're watching this video and you're not aligned to your purpose, if you're not going in a direction of what you're actually supposed to be here for, it's such a shame. What you want to be doing is trying to impact the world in some way, and the only way to do that is through understanding and figuring out what your purpose is. So through my learning, through my education, I've realized that what your purpose comes down to, first and foremost, is your value hierarchy. So values to me are something that just seemed to be a bit of a buzzword whilst I was growing up, when I was at school and things like that. And it turns out that your values are actually extremely important, funnily enough. That might be obvious to some, but to me it was not. I just thought they were words. It's like, okay, yeah, I've got some values and things like that, but so what? It really comes down to is that you have a value hierarchy. So there's certain values that you value far more than others, right? For example, it would be like freedom, health, growth, continuous improvement, determination, confidence, things like this. And these values are what guide you every step of the way. They are the things that guide your decisions. And if you figure out what your value hierarchy is, you'll realize that all the decisions that you've made typically throughout your life have been dependent on that hierarchy, okay? Throughout my life, I've been traveling. I've lived in different countries. I've been learning. I read a lot of books. I consume a lot of information on YouTube. Sometimes when I don't know what to do with myself, I'll consume information. That's what I'll gravitate towards. The reason for that is because one of my values is learning, education, continuous improvement, growth, evolution, transformation. These are my values. And so it wasn't until I did these exercises that I realized, okay, hang on, this is the reason why I have these habits. So if you realize what your values are, if you can put this down on paper, you're at least going to have a guide so that you can understand and go in the right direction. Once you know what your values are, it makes all your decisions moving forward throughout the future after this video far easier to make. Those big decisions that you're just not sure what to do next. You can just look at your value chart, your hierarchy of values, your list that you've just written down, and you can decide, okay, based on these values, that's what I'm going to decide to do, okay? Now, once you've written down that list, there's different questions that you have to ask, and that's why I recommend that you learn from the teachings of people like John DeMartini, Anthony Robbins, or Tony Robbins is more well known as, and Carl Jung. Okay, if you read a book by Tony Robbins called Awaken the Giant Within, you understand what I mean. The questions that you ask yourself typically direct your life based on the values that you have. So let's say you've got a list of 3 or 4 values, right? You've got, let's talk about the ones that I just mentioned: freedom, continuous improvement, health, and education. Let's talk about that. I think those 4 different ones. You can rank them 1 to 4. Okay, and once they're ranked, that's just dependent on what you think in the moment. But the thing is, you need to ask yourself questions. What am I missing out on by having this one number 1 and this one number 2, this one number 3, this one number 4? And you would do that in your whole list, and then you would figure out like what kind of values you need to have in order to achieve the things that you want to achieve. Sometimes there might be values that you have that you don't really need, because if you're looking to make $1 million, you want to become a millionaire, then you need certain values in there. Okay, if you want to be free and security is right up there and comfort is right up there, then maybe you're not quite aligning your values to what you want, and you haven't really adjusted things. And so we only truly know what we want by understanding what our values are. So once you've got these values down on paper, okay, the next step is to look at what you've been doing and what you typically do day to day. Because like I said earlier, you'll realize that almost all the decisions that you've been making throughout your life have led you in this direction. And then they've led you in that direction because those are typically what your values are and what your purpose is. You're always gravitating towards it, no matter what you think. I've had jobs in the past which I just didn't like, but most of those jobs taught me certain skills that has allowed me to get to where I am today. Being an entrepreneur, that's something that has allowed me to achieve freedom. When I was younger, when I was at school, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I was happy just making 100K a year, right? My goal was just to, get a job in the mines. In Australia, you can get paid 100, 200, 300K a year plus, maybe even more. That was my goal. I just was like, I'll just have any job that's going to give me 100K a year. I don't want a business. I don't want to be a billionaire, whatever. I just want, safety, security. That money's going to allow me to be free. But lo and behold, as you can probably tell by now, having a job doesn't allow you to be free, because you have to ask to go on vacation. If there's a pandemic, you get forced to do certain things that you don't want to do. And so I realized that the only path for me was entrepreneurship to achieve that freedom. And funny enough, you have to go through the short-term pain in order to achieve the long-term pleasure as well, because being an entrepreneur does not give you any freedom early on. Later on, if you're successful, that it does give you the freedom, but early on it doesn't. And so it's almost like against going my values early on, but once you align to it and you figure things out over time, you're guided in that direction. Hopefully this is kind of making sense to you guys. Your values determine everything. The choices you make or the decisions that you make, where you gravitate towards. And everyone's got a different set of values. There's so many of them out there. You just have to understand what your hierarchy is, and then you'll understand why you make the decisions that you do. One of the big things I also have learned is that your purpose is primarily based on what you can contribute to the rest of the world. So let's say, you value comedy as an example. You might want to make people laugh. You want to, bring comedy to the world. If you're an artist, maybe you want to bring beauty to the world in some way. If you're an entrepreneur, maybe you want to bring money into the world for yourself so that you can use that in positive ways. Right? So hopefully that makes sense. Ultimately, we have to look inside ourselves and reflect to try and figure out what our purpose is. And our purpose will always allow us to contribute more to the world, because that's what humans are. We like to evolve and we contribute. Just the process of writing a book today that someone can read 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and they can get all of your years of wisdom and experience in 100 pages, 200 pages. That's really what we're born to do as humans, to evolve, to transform, and to allow people to kind of transcend what they are. And so let's say you're bringing some kind of value into the world based on your purpose. That is ultimately what you're going to be gravitating towards, which is contributing. If you just do it selfishly for yourself, then there's almost no point really to be here. There should always be that extra why. There's some kind of contribution goal to your purpose. So I'd recommend you read the resources from those 3 people that I mentioned earlier: Tony Robbins, Carl Jung, John DeMartini. It's really been helpful for me to understand what my purpose is, or at least what I am aligned to. And funny enough, even once you do these exercises, you're not going to have an exact answer. Like, I should be an astronaut, right? There's not like a specific answer to this. What you're going to get when you do these exercises is a guideline, so that you can gravitate towards things that are going to enable you to live by those values every day, okay? And there's obviously bad values as well, right? There's things that you want to run away from in order to get the better values. Like I said, read the resources, go through the exercises, and Let me know what you think in the comments below. Once you do these exercises, has this helped you? Have you read the books that I mentioned earlier? Awaken the Giant Within, transformational book. One of the best books on the planet, I think. Almost every entrepreneur should read this book. Everyone should read this book. One of the best self-development books for sure. The DeMartini method is going to give you 13 questions so that you can fill out in a worksheet style format what it is that you want, so you can answer very specific questions. Because at the end of the day, your questions are what determine what your life is going to be. And so that method helps you figure out what questions you need to ask. And just going and reflecting on yourself. That's something that most of us, we forget to do. You know, we're surrounded by technology, social media, TV, gadgets and things like that. We're living in an external world. If you can shut everything else off and just look internally inside yourself, you're gonna realize what it is that you gravitate towards and what your purpose is. This is the reason why so many people are asking this question and searching for the answer to what is their purpose. You know, a lot of people ask what the purpose of life is. What you should be asking is, what is my purpose in my life? Because everyone's gonna have a different purpose. And you're not gonna know that by looking at everyone else on social media and having your emotions going all over the place and being played with. You need to self-reflect. A lot of people, in order to find their purpose, they go away into the mountains, into the jungle for 2 or 3 days a week, a month. You know, they really shut off from technology and social media. So that's also another option. If you go through these exercises and you really fully reflect and you still don't know what to do, maybe you're just being consumed too much by externalities like social media and what other people think. Because another thing as well is your values are going to be unique to you. You have to really ask yourself deep inside and know deep inside what values are important to you, not what you think other people's values are that you should adopt or have. That's the real key here, is to really self-reflect. So yeah, let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. I'm still learning myself, but I wanted to kind of give you guys this information. Maybe it's gonna help at least one person. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.